Hello there. So I've restarted my shamanic training online. I'm very much enjoying working with my current apprentice. That's brought up various things to discuss with you this morning. And I'm besieged by the cats, so let's just put on the towel for them to launch themselves onto, and I'll go right into it. So what I'm doing effectively in this film is I'm making an introduction to you to two resources. The first is called A Korean Odyssey and it's available on YouTube, and it's also available on Netflix. And the second one is a film I made myself some years ago called The Shaman Study of Life 101 Part 1. So I'm recommending these two to you if you are a shaman yourself, you're very interested in the subjects of shamanic practice, and particularly karma and reincarnation, negative energy possession, and relationships with the particular regard to when we're in ego and wanting in a relationship as opposed to true love itself. So I'm going to tell you first of all a little bit about Korean Odyssey. So this is based upon an ancient Chinese folklore tale about the Monkey King and a monk, a human monk called Tripitaka. So you can do your research on this and find out what the story is about, but it's this updated Korean version I'm so interested to share with you, because what the show manages to do is to interweave the three themes I've spoken about: karma and reincarnation, negative energy possession, and the whole question of love, in such a clever, intelligent way, and yet it's all done through what appears to be quite a superficial, light-hearted, quirky TV show. And for those of you not familiar with Korean TV shows, I will explain that each episode is almost 1.5 hours long, and there's a whole bunch of episodes. So the thing about the Korean TV show way of working is because they have so much time to develop and to devote to their characters, they can go really deep into the story of these people. So in A Korean Odyssey we've got three characters. We've got the Monkey King. So the Monkey King is irrepressible. He is a being that once was a heavenly being, and he made a whole lot of choices which meant that he ended up being confined. Basically heaven had confined him for his less than good acts, shall we say, a whole succession of them. Being the monkey, you can imagine the kind of quality we're talking about here. So in the story of the Korean Odyssey, we have the Monkey King imprisoned, and we have the Devil King Wu, the second character, and what he does is he has got a karmic situation going on which goes back 100 years to a lifetime when Korea was occupied by the Japanese, and he was involved in something very, very unfortunate which caused him a great deal of grief. So he also has fallen from the grace of heaven, and he's very determined to get back into heaven by doing a whole load of charitable acts. And the first charitable act we get to see in the Korean Odyssey, he's trying to put out a fire. In order to put out a fire, he makes use of this young girl, primary school age, and she has the very unfortunate ability to see negative energies at a very young age. Now this actually happens to people. Someone I know very closely, when she was a child, she was able to see these things as well. So this is where it starts to get even more interesting. So the Korean Odyssey, we get to explore the Devil King Wu with his past life 100 years ago, when Korea was occupied by the Japan, and this woman he was in love with, and how he's determined to recover from his fall from grace by doing charitable acts, so he will eventually be in a position where he's graduated to be able to actually help this person as he has such very profound feelings for love for. And that only starts to get revealed in episode 4 of this rather large number of episodes. So we've got this going on, but the main theme in this series is to do with the young girl who by episode 2 has grown up to be a woman in her 30s. Now, the thing about the original Chinese folklore story of the monk Tripitaka and this young woman who's now called Samjang, there's something they've got in common. They are what I would call innocents, and they're what I would call purely human. They don't have any special magical powers. So in a situation where she's literally dealing with negative energies on a daily basis and people being possessed by them, she's got no special powers. Now both Monkey and the Devil King Wu have got great powers. So when it comes to them dealing with negative energies, it's all very spectacular and melodramatic, which makes for a good TV show. However, it brings up the whole subject of negative energies and how they operate and how they are. And particularly in episode 4, we get to see a couple, a married couple, who are possessed by the spirit of greed. And we get to see how it works out and how this spirit of greed eventually gets expelled. And when it comes to shamanic practice, we are, in this case, watching two beings, so I should explain a little bit more. The Monkey King, he's obviously a being with an animal spirit connection. The Devil King Wu, eventually, we discover, is a bull. The spirit of a bull in human form. There's also a Korean pop star called PK, and he's actually the spirit of a pig in human form. And then there's another character who's the spirit of a dog in human form. So it starts to introduce you to the levels of complexity and fascination that can be developed in this TV show, A Korean Odyssey. So I won't say any more about it, but what I'm really saying is, if you're at all interested in negative energies, negative energy possession, which is what people call demonic possession, which is something that is very much in existence in contemporary life, then that's something that you might find fascinating to explore. Now I want to look a little bit more with Korean Odyssey in terms of love, and ego-centered love, as opposed to true love. So the relationship between Tripitaka the monk, who is called Samjang, the woman in her 30s in this TV show, and the Monkey King, this is the primary love story in the entire TV show. And Monkey King begins incredibly selfish, very much in his ego, and when he discovers that this woman is actually the monk Tripitaka. Now Tripitaka's innocence is a quality which the Monkey King would like to possess, and in the TV show you get to discover quite clearly all he wants to do when he discovers this girl this woman is now in her 30s, who he met when she was a young girl. Through a series of experiences, she ends up being asked by Devil King Wu to go into this building, and that's where Monkey King is imprisoned. And Devil King Wu wants her to simply get an item, a fan. This fan has huge significance, as you get to see in episode 4. And in the process of doing, like all fairy stories, she's told, don't interact with anything, get the fan and get the hell out. But it doesn't work out like that, because she meets the Monkey King. The Monkey King persuades her to let him out. Now because she, as a young girl, lets him out, she gets punished for this by heaven. It's all deep Buddhistic stuff here. And that's how the story gets to unfolding, gets to start more interesting. And we get to see the Monkey King at particular points in the TV show. All he wants to do when he discovers that this woman in her 30s is Samjang, Tripitaka, the one that he can actually steal the energy from by eating, consuming. everything seems to be fine. He just needs to get his way, he just needs to eat her. But then something happens, of course, and he eventually finds himself in the situation where he's wearing a bracelet, which is a very special fancy name in the Korean TV show, and it's the Devil King Wu that gives the young woman this bracelet to slip onto the Monkey King's wrist, and by so doing he falls in love with her. But he's falling in love with her from a position of wanting, from ego. But as the series develops, as the show develops, he ends up in a situation where he's got these two completely conflicting desires. He wants to steal her energy because she's going to make him so powerful if he takes her life force. But he's now in love with her, and he gets this point in episode 4 where he's utterly gutted when he realizes that this will be the end of him, because he's so in love with her. He wants to eat her and steal her energy, get her power so he can do his own thing. He's an immortal being, and yet by so doing he would actually have the horrific experience of killing and losing his love. And as I can predict what's going to happen as it goes on further, we're going to see just how much in love he becomes, and already he's starting to take actions and commit acts which are those of a person who's actually beyond egoic love and is actually becoming in true love. So it starts to get really interesting. So back to my second link, the film that I made quite a long time ago. Let me just remind you of the title of it. I'll put the link in the description. It is called A Shaman Study of Life 101 Part 1. Particularly recommended for the shamanic training, this film. And it's to do with a book which is written by a guy called Robert Schwartz. And it's to do with before we're born, where we go before we're born to plan out our current life, and actually the execution of our current life. It's a fascinating book, and I've made a film which goes into quite a bit of detail so you can understand why this is so interesting. And one of the things that we get to discover in this book is how people can make contracts with each other, which means they might give each other a really hard time in this lifetime, and this relates to soul contracts, and it also relates to soul mates and soul family. So I'm not going to go into much more detail about this film, other than that if you're a shamanic practitioner, if you're interested in energy medicine, you're interested in relationships, shamanic practice, and certainly if you're contemplating taking the online shamanic training with me, I would highly recommend you watch this film too, and their explorations which will really open you up to the possibilities and the interest of the subjects of karma and reincarnation, negative energy and negative possession, what people call demonic possession, and egoic love, love based from ego as opposed to true love. Thank you very much, and all the love to you. And yes, Gopal, you know, it's time for me to get off and shut off the camera yet again. I know. Okay, here we go. Woo! Until we meet again, everybody,